Hello, fermented folks, and welcome back to another episode of Fermented Fiction. Today, we have an awesome returning guest, the fantastic, popular horror author, Keith Rosson, who just came out with a new book right over my left shoulder. If you can see that, Coffin Moon, with one of the coolest cover arts I've seen in quite some time. I mean, the skull with the road going through the mouth, that gives you everything you need to know. It's death and it's a road trip book, which is fantastic. But we're so glad to have you back, Keith. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love this stuff, man. You guys are great.
All right. Appreciate that. It's just Jeremy and I running the show tonight, so maybe we'll be a shorter episode, but you never know. We could be chatting the whole 2 hours.
Maybe it'll just be unhinged. You don't know.
It will be completely unhinged.
We have a lot to talk about. I know that much.
There is a lot here.
And the reason we have a lot to talk about is because we're talking about a movie that is perhaps infamous, perhaps just famous. We will see. It is the James Gunn-written 2002 Scooby Doo live action film, directed by Raja Gosnell. Lots of opinions are had about this movie. We're not going to give you those yet because we are going to be debating it. And it'll be me and Keith debating today. But before we do that, we need some life updates and some intros. Jeremy, how about we start with you? What's going on since our last episode, which was literally yesterday?
It was literally yesterday. What do you think I could have done in the intervening 24 hours?
A lot.
But, you know, here's an update to my life, which is that... well, it's an update with it's part backstory, part update, part question. Okay,
that's a lot of parts.
There's, it's been on my mind for some time, but for reasons that I will get into, there hasn't been a time to bring it up. Okay, so the backstory is, right, last Christmas I received as a gift from my sister-in-law a pair of pajama pants. It's great, but you see, here's the issue, right? Well, I have a lot of issues. It's going to be okay. The issue is I couldn't wear them for a very long time because I get very warm. And if I'm warm and just lying in a pool of my own sweat, I'm not going to fall asleep. Luckily, recently, it has gotten to be cool enough that I can wear the pajama pants and they're lovely. But that brings me to my question, because apparently, I'm told this is normal for pajama pants. There's a feature in them that I like to call the hog hole, which I get what it's for. In theory.
In theory, yep.
I'm sure you will.
Term again.
What, Keith?
What
hog
was
hole?
Hog, H-O-G?
Yeah.
Hog, yes. Hole for, your hog. Quick access, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Yep.
Here's the issue that I have with this, is that to get the quick access granted by the hog hole, I either have to be going commando, which I don't want to do with these pajama pants because, that's recipe for disaster. Anyone could see it at any time. We got big windows.
That's fair.
Right?
Yep.
Can't have that. But if I don't go commando, the hog hole is completely useless. I would have to take everything off, pull up just the pajama pants somehow, just to be able to use that feature. My question, is that a normal thing to have? Should that even be a thing in this day and age?
Were these handmade?
No, bought at a store.
I don't know.
I was told it's just normal. I'm like, what? Why? No.
I mean, I've never seen PJs with hog hole before, but I haven't worn pajamas,
Right.
traditional pajamas for 35 years. So
Exactly. That's the exact boat I've fallen into. Like, I'm told this is normal, but also how? I can't refute it even.
It wouldn't really, I wouldn't find such a thing comforting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't alleviate like, oh, if I got to, I'm ready. You know, it would be more unnerving.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would wear underwear, probably 2 pairs of underwear, and a lot of tape, like industrial tape over the HH. You know what I mean?
I mean, like I would
The
settle
underwear
for like
is
a
to
button or
protect you
something.
from the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
right.
the second, just in case.
Just
You know,
in
you don't want to breach.
And then just bind everything with like bungee cords.
100%.
Yeah.
You
I'll
don't
see if
want
that's
to use
comfortable.
the bathroom. You
Yeah.
just do not want to use a bathroom.
Yeah, that'll be like a whole ordeal
Yeah.
with that setup, which I assume optimizes comfort.
Or if you flip them, turn them around, that might be really
That
helpful.
could
That's very helpful.
That's
That's more of an emergency.
interesting.
Right.
Yeah, because that provides some easy back ventilation
Yeah,
while
and
also
you don't need to wear underwear with those because there's no worry about slippage in the front. And then if you have to,
exactly.
you know,
Yep. I like that, Keith. This is the kind
real
of content,
problem solver.
the kind of content you get on this show.
it's you know, solving plot holes, no pun intended. You know,
100%.
I'm glad we were able to solve the old HH.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you,
My
Keith.
update is that I ran into one of the most stereotypical like husband problems that can ever happen. And that is, I got home with this bottle of mead that I'm going to be drinking for the show. But I don't know where my wife put things. So I couldn't find the corkscrew. So I just punched a hole in it.
Oh, that's gonna seep through.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Hey, it worked. I got mead in my glass now. But
Yeah,
you did it.
I was rummaging through the kitchen. Yeah, rummaging through, thinking I know we own one of these, but I don't know where she put it.
Right.
You know, you had a problem, you solved it.
I did.
With engineering, and that's
Jeez, I gotta come up with a problem now. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting ready to tour, to go on a UK tour and next week, like in a week.
Nice.
And able to finagle it into a family vacation.
Nice.
Yeah, and so getting the like kids' passports and the visas and all that stuff, and I'm very excited. I'm a little trepidatious because it's kind of a lot on my wife to like. She's going to be with the kids a lot while I'm off doing book events. You know what I mean? So, but it's also like, oh shit, we get to go to another country for almost 2 weeks.
How hard will it, if I can ask, how hard will it be to travel? Like, how old are your kids?
They're 8 and 9, and they're really good travelers.
Oh, good.
I think they're.
Oh yeah, that's not so bad.
Yeah, we're flying on British Airways, which has like screens on the back of the seats with like incredible libraries. Like,
and thanks, sweet merciful God, for those.
Yeah, and like video games, like there are video games on this, and it's like half of they're gonna remember the flights of like, oh, just unmitigated screen time. Yes.
No restrictions.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this like twice on the show already, but I love bringing up the fact that like riding in planes was one of those things that I wish I could like have the child mind again. Because now I'm just like, I hate this experience with every fiber of my being. But as like a kid, you're like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I never flew. I was probably 20 when I flew the first time. So that opportunity was lost, you know?
Yeah. See,
well, if you have any other updates, but could you tell the great people at Fermented Fiction that may not have seen your first episode who you are, what you're up to these days, where to find you? And maybe a little bit about this beautiful book behind my head.
Yeah. So my name is Keith Rosson. I've written, I think, 7 books. The Fever House duology, Smoke City, Road 7, and my newest one that came out last month, Coffin Moon, which is a kind of amalgam of true grit and vampires and a revenge tale and a road trip, all smushed together and run through the colander of 1970s Portland crime. So, yeah, gritty, slow burn, lots of blood, lots of sad vampires, that sort of thing.
Love that. And I have to say, your book reminded me how much I love pre-orders, because when you were on last time, I pre-ordered it, and I did it.
That's right.
I did it far enough in advance that I kind of forgot that I pre-ordered it. So like one day
So
I just
cool,
got a book on my doorstep, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah!"
Yeah, that's so cool when that happens. Yep.
So I highly encourage any people out there watching or listening, pre-order books. It's kind of fun to forget and then be like, "Oh look, a book." Yeah.
And it's tremendously helpful to the author, because publishers, for better or worse, a lot of times live and die by that first month sales, including pre-orders. So that shit helps so much.
Fantastic. Okay, then double encouraged.
Yeah.
Support your favorite author by pre-ordering their book and then getting a little surprise like Christmas gift down the line. All right. We've been introduced. We all know who we are. Keith, thank you again for joining us, and we're going to roll some dice now. Jeremy is rolling for our guest here and hopefully rolling well. Usually when I roll for guests, that's bad. So I think the dice gods might be in your favor, Keith. Today we are debating the 2002 Scooby Doo. As I said, I don't think I need to tell you what it's about. It's Scooby Doo. If you don't know what Scooby Doo's about, I'm sorry.
Get a life.
Yeah, get a life. Watch an episode of the old show. Or
It's a
watch
Scooby Doo style plot.
There's something. It's a Scooby Doo style plot. There's a mystery.
I mean, we're already getting into that nebulous middle ground of is it really?
I don't know. Is it? Yeah.
Well, who knows, man?
All right, Jeremy.
All opinions about this.
Roll your dice.
All right.
What'd you
How'd you do?
Not good.
How not good?
A 5.
So
Yeah, that's not very good because I got a 7.
So you won, Keith. So you're going to be pro Scooby Doo.
okay, I'm going to be pro Scooby Doo. Okay.
Yeah. I am anti Scooby Doo, and we will learn what we actually think. But for now, we have time to debate. Jeremy, you got that 10-minute timer prepped?
Oh, you know I do.
And remember, Keith, we got 10 minutes between both of us, so no need to filibuster. Just share the time,
So we just kind of bounce back and forth for 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm officially opening my drink now.
Oh, perfect.
Excellent. You'll want that.
I got my meat.
All
right,
right,
Jeremy.
Ready.
Bring us in.
Got 10 minutes. Let's go at it. Let's have some shenanigans, some chicanery, some skullduggery, all that good stuff. And that good stuff is gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go.
Starting with you, Keith.
Okay, well, I don't have a big monologue planned. I think it's a tremendously inventive, fearless, almost at times horror-esque adaptation of a beloved IP. There is so much going on, so many tremendous curveballs, so many striking visual effects, so many twists that I continually, Robin and I watched it together and continually just would look at each other and say, what the F is going on? Because it was so tremendously, the plot was just so seamlessly veering that I never knew quite what to expect. Don't you agree?
I mean, it veers. I don't know if I'd call that a good thing. I think it's more sporadic than like seamlessly veering. I think this movie is chaos incarnate, with not a gentle hand behind the camera. And I think all of that is highlighted even more succinctly when you rewatch it in 2025 and see how bad the visual effects are. Like Scooby-Doo looks terrible. The monsters look worse than Scooby-Doo. And it's almost comical. So if you go back and you just want like a decent laugh at just terrible visual effects, maybe this movie has some redeeming qualities. But as a film that I'm going to say, is it good or bad? Just purely how it looks is always going to fall on the bad side of the spectrum.
I have to respectfully disagree. I just think that some of the set pieces, you had the the kind of like bowl of like soul sperm or whatever that is that they drew from, that was very striking.
Mhm.
Yeah, the weird monster raptors gave me chills. Um, the questionable voodoo angle was perhaps a little tasteless now, and yet fearless filmmaking in its
Mm.
way. You know, took a lot of risks, and I would say most of them landed. I mean, who in their right mind, besides James Gunn, would have the entire goddamn Mystery Inc. crew hating each other throughout the entirety of the film? And yet, man, it works, doesn't it? Don't you agree?
You're ending everything with don't you? No, I don't agree, Keith. I do not agree. I think the hating angle would have been good if I didn't, just end up disliking literally every character except maybe Shaggy. I can't lie that much. Everyone loves Matthew Lillard. But besides that, like, Fred is a douche. Daphne is an a-hole. Velma is stuck up and thinks she's smarter and better than everybody. Scooby's just Scooby. Like, I'm neutral on him in this movie. And then you got the villain Scrappy Doo, who is probably the
Dude,
worst
what? That's
Scooby-Doo
such a
character.
huge spoiler. My God, what?
Yeah,
did
we
you-
spoil here. We spoil here, and also it's
Oh,
2000.
Yeah, by the way, spoilers, everyone.
It's been
Yeah,
23
wow.
years. Come on.
Goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
Scrappy turns out to be the villain, which everyone hates Scrappy Doo. I don't care if he's a villain. When he shows up on screen, I hate Scrappy Doo.
Okay. Legitimately, I was shocked at the twist of who the villain was. And they preface it with the one guy ripping his face off and it's a robot and all that. And so the ground is already laid for when the big reveal comes. Brilliant breadcrumb piece of filmmaking. And I think there's a lot to be said about we hear about this in fiction a lot too. Like, I mean, characters don't have to be likable, in my opinion. They have to be believable and convincing. And my God, I was convinced of the surety of every single one of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like Matthew Lillard, like he was channeling the id of Shaggy, you know, and Thelma, like just it was like they had exhumed the cartoonish corpse from the 1960s and put it into this new. It was. I had shivers through the majority of the film.
I think
It might have been an illness of some kind, but
but you had shivers. I want to divert a little bit to a different part of this movie that I despise, and that is that it's something that could have been good, but it doesn't end well. And that's just how much it drips late 90s, early 2000s. Like, its whole identity is just soaked in this pool of the main villain's bodyguard is like a WWE like fighter cage.
The musical guest. Who was the musical guest?
Sugar Ray. Sugar Ray is on the screen, and that scene alone, I'm like, no, get them out of here. No, I do not want Sugar Ray in my face for a good solid like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what are they playing? I just want to fly or something like that. And it's like, okay, I don't need to be reminded that song was in a CD in my first car, which I wasn't even in the early 2000s. I was mid 2000s, but Sugar Ray was still making its mark.
Yeah,
Mark McGrath. So I hated that. I don't know how you felt about it, but to me, it was just like, don't make that your whole personality.
There are a couple moments that really struck me. One, when they're in the before they throw Scrappy out on the road, he tells Fred they're talking about something, and he's very dismissive, and he says, "You don't have the scrote for it," which is like that's kind of an amazing line, and very jarring, contextually.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that he's not even a puppy, that he has a glandular disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was very surprising too. So again, you can talk all this smack about, what nostalgic era or whatever. curveballs left and right, like just perfect plotting. Didn't drag at all, made perfect sense, super linear, totally understood who everybody was and what their purpose was, and really good acting. Definitely not nonsensical whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the thing I also hear often cited as a good thing about this movie are the one-liners, but some of these have not aged well and are very cringy. Freddy got his groove back, sticks in my mind, and that's rough, you know. And then he does dagger kung fu. Where did he learn dagger kung fu, Keith? What time period? Was it during the break? Has he always known dagger kung fu?
That's fair. That's fair. I appreciated a good 2 or 3 minutes of just Shaggy farting. I was okay with that. You know what I mean? Little bit of, you got your intellectual humor and then you got your body humor, and they towed that line consistently and perfectly throughout the entire film.
You know, this might be the one time in a debate I've asked for citations for an argument. Can you tell me where's that intellectual humor? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, I think that Velma espoused like so much just a kind of effusive academic quality that I just felt myself getting smarter just every time she was on screen, you know? So
to me, she felt like a character written by someone who thinks they're writing a smart character, but doesn't really misses the mark a little bit. And I think, yeah, go ahead.
I think that it's fair that we address the source material, right?
Okay.
You know, how much can you expand upon what's already there? And how much do you pay homage to the original material? So I think Gunn and the other writer were just, you know, sitting firmly inside that wheelhouse of respect and honor to the original material. And just, you know, but without like, they're not going to blow the entire thing up.
See, I'm glad you brought this up because they butchered my baby. I grew up with Scooby Doo. I love Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo on Zombie Island was one of my favorite movies of all time as a kid. And that was one of the first ones where it's the monsters are real this time, which became the trend of every Scooby Doo animated movie since. But I really don't like that they took this into an adult potty humor direction when, you know, I think these were kids shows and kids movies that always had an element of mystery that was pretty easy to solve, but it was for children. And yeah, maybe they were panning to the audience that had grown up and like now had aged with the material, but I just hate the direction they took it. I don't think James Gunn was the guy for the job.
You shut up now. You just shut up.
Shutting up.
That was good.
Over, let it go. Good job, everybody.
Well done, Keith.
You too, man.
All right, what are you drinking for your debate prep? What were you sipping on?
Oh, I'm drinking a little 20 ounce or whatever of Starburst Ecliptic IPA.
Nice. Jeremy, you made a very special drink for this episode.
I did. You know, in the spirit of Spooky Island, I made a Mai Tai. And so I'm just grooving.
Hell yeah.
Very thematic. Well done.
I know. It looks so fancy when you just toss a whole shrub in there.
Yeah, yep.
I already referenced it once. I didn't have a cork for it, so I poked a hole in the bottle. But we have a local meadery here in Bozeman, one of the only 3 in Montana, called Valhalla. And I love their Earl Grey mead. It does taste like Earl Grey tea. It's fantastic with a little honey in there. Big fan. Go to Valhalla if you live in the Bozeman or Gallatin Valley. If you like mead. All right. Well, Jeremy, before we give what our real opinions are, do you have some trivia on old Scooby Doo?
You know, I do have a little bit of trivia here. I think many people do know that originally, like in early production for this film, they were this was going to be something of a parody of the cartoons, and they were shooting for a PG-13 rating. Shaggy was going to be a stoner. Velma and Daphne had a side relationship, and there were a lot of marijuana references, many of which, it seems, ended up in the film.
Yep.
Then after everyone had signed on, they geared it, they started to change it to be more family friendly. However, James Gunn in 2017 confirmed that the original cut of the film got an R rating, and apparently they had to use CGI to cover up some cleavage that apparently was too hot for this film.
Did they say which character?
They did not say which character. If I had to guess, probably Velma.
I would, because there was a section towards the last third of the film where her outfit seemed to noticeably change.
Oh yeah,
and then at the very
way
end,
breastier.
Yeah, it was so weird. It was so weird.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weirdness going on.
I will, to go off your first fact, though, I want to point out, I think it's hilarious to point out all the marijuana references. The Mary Jane's my favorite name. Yep. My favorite is at the beginning when they're cooking
the mystery machine.
The smoke is like rolling out of the top of the camper. That is so good.
So good.
I don't remember. Those are the two that like I remember strongly, but.
Yes. And let's see. Now there is some trivia that I do want to get to regarding. Apparently, there were a lot of ways the film could go in terms of the main villain at the end. So there's some conflicting reports here on the old IMDb trivia. Apparently, originally, one part is saying that originally Scrappy-Doo was not going to be the main villain. They were going to have Old Man Smithers, who was the Luna Ghost from the beginning of the movie, be behind everything. Which, okay, maybe. This is one that I actually prefer. Allegedly, James Gunn's original screenplay had the villain finally revealed as actor Don Knotts, as a payoff to Fred's line referring to Scooby cleaning his beans at his Christmas party, which I so wish that was the case. Also, and I guess one final bit of trivia, which I guess Travis pointed out in his arguments, is that Fred apparently just knows the Chinese martial art of rope dart fighting. And he was doing this in the toy factory in the beginning of the film. This isn't something he learned during the 2-year time skip. He just knew how to do that the whole time.
Nice.
And that's what I've got, unless anybody else has something to throw in here.
I don't know if you meant it this way, but I'm gonna take it that you mean that Freddie Prinze Jr. just knows that martial art.
Both. I believe they are the same person, and they like straddle universes.
That's amazing. I love it. I have no addition. I mean, there's so many fun facts about this movie, but I think you touched on some of my favorites. Do you know any, Keith?
No, it was just such a trip to like watch it, and this is the first time I'd ever seen it. So, being like,
wow.
like, oh, you son of a bitch! All right, well, you made me watch it twice.
That's fantastic.
Seeing like so many actors that you recognize from that era and beyond, like Velma is in. She was in that series Dead to Me.
Yeah, Linda Cardellini.
Yeah, and she's in the new Friday the 13th remake that's going on, the like prequel or whatever. So that was very interesting, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of her. I love what was the show she was in that was kind of got her big start? Freaks and Geeks. Big fan of that.
Freaks and wasn't fucking that was Mr. Bean, right? Was that Mr. Bean?
Yeah, that was Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
There. Yeah. Ooh, so good.
Weird. Yeah, so there's some weird ones there, you know what I mean?
And all the weirdness combined to be actually a successful film. The production budget was $84 million and worldwide box office made $276 million. So it made 3.3 times its production budget and definitely warranted the sequel, which I also have a lot of opinions about. But
which was I haven't seen that one either, but it like the little bit I read was like tremendous flop. And Matthew Lillard like credits it as killing his career.
Monsters Unleashed. Oh man, that's sad because this is our Matthew Lillard like season. We've talked about him twice already, and I think we might have a third on the docket.
Dude, he's tremendous, man.
He's awesome. So good. Yeah. We reviewed Scream and talked about how fantastic he is in that film. But that is trivia. That is facts. That is drinks. And now we can get into the meat, the protein of the show, which is our discussion and our true thoughts. I'm going to kick us off by telling you all that I lied. I love Scooby Doo. I love 2002 Scooby Doo.
Are you serious?
I am serious. I'll tell you why.
Wow.
It is a bonkers movie. It is absolutely insane. I think Keith's right that it kind of just goes all over the place, but somehow it works. The visual effects are terrible, but hilariously so. And there's one-liners galore in this movie that I will just remember for the rest of my life. My wife and I constantly quote the one, which you're right. Maybe it's not the best voodoo references in the film, a little ill, didn't age well, but the voodoo guy, we always quote the scene where Daphne goes in and is like talking to him and he's like, purple is a fall color. It's the middle of May. Like we constantly say that to each other.
Yeah.
And there's just so many lines that hit the funny bone for me, I think, because I grew up with this movie. And a lot of them are like very adult, and it was weird that they made it into a PG film.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think a lot of it is nostalgia, why I love this movie so much, but I am a big fan of the live action Scooby-Doo, not the sequel. They really didn't make a good second one. But James Gunn wrote something here that I think is a once in a lifetime. How the hell did you get away with it? But holy crap, I had a fun ride. Keith, what did you think?
I don't have quite the emotional connection that you did. I thought it did a lot of like really fun adherence, particularly early on to the cartoons. The first 20 minutes is just like spot on with them, capturing the Luna ghost or whatever, and then it was just a insane fever dream of a movie, that just, to me, I could not discern what the F was going on most of the time. And everyone was kind of insufferable. And Matthew Lillard was, again, like he was channeling Shaggy. It was amazing. So
just pure Shaggy.
So fun to watch, and everyone else I could kind of take or leave. But it was a fun 90 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. I do think Freddie Prinze Jr., Fred being Fred, I think he did pretty good with the like preppy jock boy
thing he had going on there.
Yeah. But you're right. I think Matthew Lillard out of the whole cast is like, he's my Shaggy. Like even I watched the cartoon before this movie and I still will never see anyone else as Shaggy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And like, I know they made the recent animated film, and I was like one of the people that was pretty upset when they cast someone new. And then to hear that they didn't even tell him that they were like not bringing him back, because he voice acted Shaggy for a while after this.
Right, movie. I remember them, yeah.
And then they rebooted it, and I think they brought on Will Arnett. and didn't even tell Matthew in an
That's
interview.
Shaggy.
That was Will
Yeah.
Forte.
Will Forte.
Oh,
sorry.
there we go. Okay.
There's a totally other
Different
Will.
Will.
Like, oh, that's a wild shift.
I mean, Will Arnett. That would be wild.
Hey, and maybe you could pull it off. But yeah, Will Forte. But yeah, it's still. I'm like, that's not Will Forte's part. That's Matthew Lillard's part. He did it. Yeah. Jeremy, what is your thoughts on 2002 Scooby Doo?
Now this is it's a weird one because like it starts off as pure Scooby Doo, like Luna Ghost, whatever. Then the good drugs kick in, and and we're just in on this bananas ass ride. Where like now, first of all, I enjoy somewhat that they stick with the grand tradition of literally every other Scooby-Doo movie there has ever been, the animated ones, where the big twist is that magic is real, which is, I don't know why all of them do that, because
They should know by now.
that is 100% not. That's like the exact opposite of what the show was about. But like, okay, magic is real now. Again, still, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there's a gas leak in the mystery machine. But just watching this thing back with my wife, who said to me that this is the scariest movie that she will watch. God bless her, that precious little cinnamon bun. Oh my god. But like, I don't know. Is this a good movie? I would say no. Is this a great movie? I would say yes. Not because of how good it is, but like it's just there's a lot of feelings. There's pure Shaggy. Scooby is being Scooby, being lured into the woods for somebody's like, yeah, we got a friggin' bag of hamburgers. He's like, sick, I'll be there in 5. Like, okay. But it did help me notice things that I hadn't before. One, how horny the movie is, which take it or leave it, I guess.
Yeah.
But 2, like Shaggy owns the mystery machine.
Shaggy's wealthy, apparently. Shaggy
Yeah, like
familial wealth.
He does.
I think because you see Mary Jane when she first enters, she's eating Scooby snacks. Like that's something you can apparently just go and buy at a store. I think Shaggy has that Scooby snack money.
Oh, he got in on the rights.
I see. But then
think
wouldn't there be a moment
Shaggy
of realization where she's like, "You're that Scooby? Oh my goodness!"
You'd think.
Right.
I would think, but like,
I kind of like the headcanon that you proposed, Keith, that he's like the family member everyone can't stop loving, even though he kind of just like lives off, off daddy's money. But he's not the daddy's money guy that everyone hates. He's the one that's like, oh yeah, he's real fun to have around. He's
Yeah, right.
yeah, he's a chill hang.
What bummed me out is I didn't like that. I get that it's a plot device, but that like division between them all was like such a drag. That was not fun to
Yeah.
Big bummer. I think it was just kind of an excuse for them to be mean to each other for the next hour.
Yeah,
or so.
split up into different. Yeah, totally.
Because I'm pretty sure that's the only like group dynamic James Gunn knows how to write.
It's divided. Yeah, right.
He does like that one quite a lot, the divided, the fighting. I do. This actually leads perfectly into my first question, though, about the writing process, since we have you, Keith Rosson, on the show. Because there's something that James Gunn does do pretty well. I think I'll never say he's like a master screenwriter, in my opinion. Some people might disagree. But I think he has a way of finding subtle moments of real heart within like completely goofy films. And even Scooby Doo has a couple. Like there's a couple speeches from Shaggy to Scooby that I'm like, oh yeah, that pulls at the strings a little bit. And you can see this is one of his earliest works, leading up to stuff we'll get in like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where Rocket's story is like a tearjerker. Superman has some really good moments. Even the Suicide Squad has a few really deep, like, oh, James Gunn can write a dramatic scene. So that leading up to my question to you first, Keith, is like, is it difficult in the writing process to kind of, or maybe not difficult, but where do you find those moments of taking a sort of emotional breath from action, and how do you bake those into your story, or do they just come natural as you're plotting it out, or is it something you kind of have to time? Because it seems like if you do it wrong, it could really like upset the pace.
Yeah, and I think so much of like after X amount of books or whatever, stuff comes organically. You know what I mean? Like I've kind of grown to just kind of internally get a like pace of a story or a tone and be like, oh, I know where I'm getting a little south here or here. And I think I generally run the risk of like too much navel gazing, like emotional stuff, too much backstory and exposition. And I occasionally have to like, let's go, temper that with more forward momentum in my plots. So the emotional stuff is not hard. It's balancing it, like you said, with moments of action or recourse or a character not just reacting to something, but moving the plot forward, But the emotional stuff is like, that's very, comes pretty naturally.
Yeah, I think it's something that, like, especially in this movie, it comes from like knowing the characters and like what they're about, because like natural breaks are going to happen, because like you can't just go from action to action to action to action to action, and no one would watch it, read it, sell it, buy it, whatever. It wouldn't be good. And like like rewatching this film with my wife, she had the question early on of like, why do Shaggy and Scooby even do the whole mystery solving thing when they're terrified every time and they're running away? And then Shaggy does his whole speech of like, I'm gonna go save Scooby because that's the right thing to do, and he's my best friend, and I'm just going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I may shit myself in the process. Well, time for a dog treat.
Yeah.
And it's just understanding that, and that's one of that is, I think, where James Gunn writing tends to shine, when he's got that understanding, because otherwise his writing can be very hit or miss for me personally.
Yeah.
I'm like tangential enough to like screenwriting and like, Hollywood shit and everything that I think he's fantastic, and screenwriting to me is like, as a novelist, it's a weird, like magical power,
Yeah.
I don't like, I could probably, and I think I am going to start like messing around with it, but it's still at the point where it's such a confusing ability. It's like meeting a wizard. Like, how the hell did you do that? I know how to turn rocks into gold, but how do you turn dirt into gold? That's amazing. So I think it's great.
What are some of the things you think he does the best, and like maybe something you've seen that you really...
I think his dialogue is so, it sings, you know what I mean? It's so like quick. And particularly, stuff like Suicide Squad, like it's so campy in a way, you know what I mean? And yet it's like a show tune with deflated lungs and shit hanging off of it,
Yeah.
It's that like ridiculous violence alongside like really dialogue with a lot of velocity to it,
Yeah, and I think too, like the moments that he has, like we do spoil things on this show, but I constantly remember like the Rick Flag Peacemaker showdown at the end.
Yeah,
there's this moment where it's like, ha 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 ha, all this is funny, Peacemaker's a douche, like this is a great funny comedy, and then that like face off and the like way Rick Flag goes down, like the way he dies in his last line, it's like, oh no, like
Right.
Peacemaker's not just a goofy character. There's something here that's gonna be a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I think that was genius.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I think it's one of James Gunn's biggest strengths is that like he knows what is ridiculous about like the things he's writing, but he doesn't treat them as ridiculous. He just treats them like they're just things that are happening. Even when they're ridiculous, you've still got to deal with Scrappy Doo turning into
Right.
a Hulk.
That's right. A steroid overdose. Yeah, totally. But I think that's the thing that I talk about a lot in my writing. And maybe Scooby Doo is not the best example of it, but characterization to me is so important. Where it's like, if I can convince the reader that these characters are at least passably believable and you begin to root for them and understand their fallacies and all that, the plot, I can put any ridiculous thing in the plot because readers care about these characters. So to me, character is always more important. That's the most important thing for me, you know, is having that kind of emotional underpinning towards everybody, whether it's you love to hate them or you see their point of view or you want to see them fail so bad you can taste it, you know?
Yeah. I'd love to dive in though, because I think we talk a lot about character on the show. I think to your point, because it's the most important thing for both screenwriting and if you're, you know, reading a novel, if you don't care about the people in the book, you're not going to care about the book. But one thing I've been kind of fixating on lately, and I'd love to talk in reference to Coffin Moon, is setting and time and like how those play to the characterization of your, because that seems like a difficult task, like the amount of research that you'd have to do, the like authenticity you're trying to pull out of 1970s Portland. Yeah, just how much does that contribute to either the plot or the characters or both? And how hard is it something that's like kind of nerve-wracking to walk into of like, I'm going to put this intentionally somewhere that's unfamiliar to a lot of people?
Yeah, you know, I almost every book that I've written has been at least partially set in Portland, just because I've lived here for so long, and like I would, to me, it feels like an integral part of the book is the setting, and so if it was in Bozeman, you know, I would have a hard time kind of BSing my way through because I don't know it, right? And so the reason I chose the 70s is for a few things. One, you know, choosing to do a vampire book, there's a lot of tropes that you get to either acknowledge or disavow and push away. And so one of them was this notion that they're like invisible, like in mirrors and all that stuff and on cameras. And so trying to frame a contemporary vampire novel in what amounts to a surveillance state is freaking hard, you know? And so that was a very intentional decision to turn it back into the 70s. And then the other thing was growing up as a kid, all of my like mentors and the adult male figures in my life, Vietnam was kind of their war, whether they were veterans or men who opposed it and, you know, protested. That was kind of the war. And there was so much like media when I was a kid, like, you know, I don't know, Red Dawn is kind of like a Vietnam fever dream. And you have guys like Rambo and stuff like that and Jacob's Ladder, you know? And so running it up the flagpole of like, do I write a novel about with a Vietnam veteran or like, you know, an Iraq veteran? Like, I would not have felt comfortable doing that because so many of those dudes are like, have lived it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I had just through the men in my life, like more of a stake in Vietnam. And it was a formative event for me. It was the last time we had the draft, you know? And so it was those two things, Vietnam and the whole surveillance thing, that I was like, oh yeah, if I'm going to do a vampire book, I got to do it in the past.
Yeah. And there's so much there, so much I could ask you about. But I do want to relate one question off of that question to what we're talking about, which might sound separate. Scooby Doo, goofy, crazy.
Oh, am I supposed to be tying this all back?
No, not at all. But I'm gonna tie
Not even a little bit.
I'm gonna tie
Okay,
a question. Because I think one thing we've mentioned about Scooby Doo is that like it had a structure that it stepped into and then subverted.
Subverted is one way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah, one way of putting it.
About is another way.
Maybe
Going
took
ham bananas is, you know,
maybe
probably
took
just
out back and shot with a pistol. We don't know.
Yeah.
You just mentioned several like structures you stepped into with Coffin Moon of the road trip, the vampire, the 70s like Vietnam veteran. Yeah, I've talked about this a lot on the show. People maybe get sick of me asking this question, but it's a fascinating topic to me of like, I think it's so important to use the tropes of the past to tell new stories. And I just want to hear from every author about like what goes on in your mind when you're stepping into those things that are already like well-built houses. And you have to almost say like, I deserve to be here and here's why.
Yeah, and you know, like Coffin Moon is different in a lot of ways because it's not, the vampirism is almost secondary to a lot of the trauma and grief that everybody's experiencing, including the vampire in question, you know. And I think it's kind of just like that's been my whole shtick. Like with Fever House and The Devil by Name, it was zombies. With Smoke City, it was ghosts, you know. And I really just take a trope and a horror trope and just kind of make it my own, you know. And I'm not trying to retell a classic story. I'm kind of trying to it sounds lofty to say I'm trying to break it across my knee, but I'm trying to like just, you know, do something a little different. And so this is like Coffin Moon is not like it's way more about the human hearts and the human heart of the vampire and every single character thinking what they believe and what they want matters more than anybody else. And how poisonous that can be, you know, and how even when you get revenge on somebody who wronged you, it's still, you're still busted, you know. And there's nothing really horrific about that except the feeling that comes afterwards, you know. And so the whole notion of vampirism as like sexy vampire in a cloak and all that shit, that's the thing that I wanted to really push away from at this point, and to make it more of a like human, like you have to be a broken person to survive as a vampire because what it requires is so monumentous and effed up, you know.
Yeah, I love that concept of like, because like anytime you think long enough about vampirism, it's like there's always like the teenage Travis was like, that'd be so cool. You never see You'd read so many books, blah blah blah. And like I'd probably be sexy. And it's like, no, it'd be terrible. It'd be absolutely awful. And
I mean, it's predicated on murder.
Yeah.
You know? And like I don't think a lot of people could do that. And those who could kind of morph themselves into people who could survive at that are fucking scary people that you don't want to be around. You know?
I feel like there's plenty of people nowadays with as many sexy vampires as there have been that you know, a modern day vampire could pretty easily set up like a whole rotating human farm type situation. Yeah.
Well, that was another thing that I wanted to mess with was this whole notion of like, if you're a vampire, you don't have time to like, I'm going to cultivate. Well, it's like, if the three of us stay up past our bedtime, we're tired the next day. We don't burst into flame and die. You know what I mean? Such a rigidity to like the requirements that they're really kind of fragile in their own way. And so my idea was like, there's no community or sense of like, we're going to build a giant clan and take over the world. It's like, it's all for one, or I'm sorry, it's like, I'm just looking out for me, you know? And there's no sense of community with the vampires in my book. So this whole notion of like building a community or a foundation to like get volunteers to sacrifice themselves, like it's way more hard scrabble in my world, you know?
I love too that we like, it's not long before the subversion started to happen with like, because you always have to subvert the monster when you're trying to like, I'm thinking specifically of the amount of vampire content out there where it's like, oh, they just have blood bags, you know, from the medical bay, and like there's a whole thing to that too. But it's trying to take what you've leaned into, that's trying to like take that away of like, oh, there's a way they can do this and not be a monster. And
and there, you know, the main vampire even talks about it later on in the book, where he's like, I tried to eat a cow, you know what I mean? And it's like it didn't fit, it doesn't fit. And you come down to this decision where it's like you either eat or you die, you know? And that's it. And that's why there's so few vampires, because so many of them decide to just step out, you know? Because it's like, I hope, in a way it's almost hopeful. I hope not a lot of people would choose that.
Yeah.
You know? That's like when you think of Tender is the Flesh, that novel is so funny to me. I loved it. I thought it was amazing, but it's predicated on the entire notion that people would rather go vegan than, or would rather eat humans than go vegan, you know? So
yeah,
look, I see that eyebrow.
Jeremy gave a little bit of an eyebrow raise there. Are you saying you would go vampire before you went vegan?
I mean, maybe. Like, okay, I'm in the situation where I've already had my sleep schedule so messed up that I haven't seen the sun for like a week at a time. Like, okay, I could do that. It would mess with my brain more. And yeah, like killing of people or whatever. But you know, I would at least try the blood bag in the microwave for a little bit. You know, warm it up, give it some of that good stuff. Now, of course, there is the issue of having to pull a blood bag heist on a somewhat regular basis.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of logistical concerns with becoming a vampire. That it's certainly more trouble than it's worth. That being said, you know, I could, because and I've said this on the show and I've said this to many people in real life, I only make delicious food. I could stand to be vegan. The only thing I don't like about committing to something like that is it cuts me off from so many wonderful ingredients. Like, why limit myself to that? Now, of course, becoming a vampire, I guess, does mean I'm limiting myself even more.
Yeah.
It's
just
like
the one.
dogs eating dog food. You know what I mean? You only get to eat one thing.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Your whole life. Thank you, but no thank you.
The dogs seem to like it.
I mean, and one would hope that there's some physiological mechanisms that are put into place as a vampire, where you start to be like, oh yeah, this is sweet. Yeah, love it.
Oh my god, this is the
great
best
blood.
I've ever had.
Blood is the best.
It is the best meal I've ever had. You know?
Yeah, if you're not like blood sucking people out of the McDonald's dining room, like that might be a different kind of blood than
than
the 5-star dining steakhouse down the road.
Yeah.
How animalistic do you make yours? Because I'm like listening to you describe the way you lean into that, and I think it's reminding me of like the natural world, how predators often, we have this like image of predator animals as this like, oh, they're always on the aggressive and stuff. It's like you study lions and wolves, and they're usually like doing the easiest thing they possibly can. Like the lion's just going to wait until the meal comes to him, and the wolf is going to pick off the weakest of the crowd. Is that something you kind of adapt?
That's the thing is, I mean, you run into a number of vampires in the book, and none of them, again, there's not a community or a clan or anything. But unlike, Sinners, where it's like once you're a vampire, there's this kind of like mass consciousness that's all shared,
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially with my vampires like a couple days worth of gnarly bodily and physiognomic changes, and then you are required pretty quickly thereafter to start eating, but your everything else is essentially intact, so you're still the same person. So if you were a ferocious prick before you were bitten, you still are, so there's plenty of gore and grossness in the book, but it's all shit that people would have been willing to do before they were vampires.
Gotcha. I love it. I love that kind of leaning into that house that's already built.
Yeah.
Constantly going to keep talking about that on the show. I'm apologizing to all the viewers.
I mean, it's horror. It's like there are original ideas, but I am not going to be like, I reinvented the horror or the vampire trope. Like, I did not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's less of a vampire novel than it is like a crime novel or a revenge story,
Yeah, and can you talk about because this is a really interesting thing too, of like the road trip movie is one of my favorites, and I think hard to pull off. There's bad ones. There's a lot of bad ones, but when they click, and I think it's because it's an experience that we've all, well, not all, but a lot of people have had as like a pivotal part of their childhood, maybe their early adulthood, of like the driving on a journey, trying to enjoy the trip, having those moments where it's like, this isn't good. I'm bored. I'm driving through North Dakota for 3 hours. This is not fun. But yeah, I think it's just something that like hits the heart of most, especially like American people. We're a nation definitely of like large freeways and traveling large distances. So yeah, could you just talk on that of like, was that a fun little subgenre to approach?
So this is the fourth. This was the third. I've now turned in 4 books to my editor at Random House, Caitlin McKenna, and I talk about her every single podcast that I'm on because she's so good and she helps me reshape books so much. And so the first draft of Coffin Moon, it started as a road trip novel, and Dwayne Miner like befriends this girl that he finds in an abandoned house, who she's just been hiding out after her grandmother has been slaughtered by this vampire, and they join forces. So there was no familial connection or anything. And it happened like a third of the way through the book that he met her, and then they just traveled everywhere trying to get this guy. And you get this email from Caitlin, which is like, it's good, it's almost there, but we haven't quite arrived. And so I needed to lattice it with a lot more emotional connection, and that's how they became, related. And so it started as a road trip novel, and I think after Smoke City and parts of Road 7, it's one of those things where it's almost a weakness, where I have a tendency to use that as a plot device, And so I just remember her urging me, like, you can shrink the story down, and it doesn't have to be this, like, the chase doesn't have to be so massive, because you need more room for connectivity among these characters, and it just wasn't getting there with the road trip. So I actually had to step back from that a little bit.
Yeah. Why do you think that's something that you gravitate towards? And also, additionally, and with Jeremy in there as well, what is one of your favorite road trip stories, book or movie?
Oh shit. I think I have like a couple tricks that I use, and they're almost subconscious, and I got to be aware of them. And so I think every writer has a tendency to kind of fit into the shirt that's comfortable, like writing, alcoholics, road trips, that sort of noir stuff, you know. So I just got to be real cognizant of it.
Mm-hmm.
So. But yes, I'd love to hear your road trip recommendation.
We'd love to hear you.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as fantastic road trips, you've got classic things like you've got The Emperor's New. Well, that's not classic. Well, maybe it's old enough. The Emperor's New Groove. You got your planes, trains, and automobiles.
There you go.
Yep.
Great stuff there. Road trips. I don't know. I feel like most stories can lend themselves, be aided by a road trip. I guess A Knight's Tale, technically also a road trip.
That's definitely a road trip movie.
Cuts, my
And
God.
that movie fucking rips.
That movie's awesome.
Yeah. So there's just this, I don't know, there's this added, there's almost an implied familial element when there are people that are stuck traveling together. Mm-hmm. They build like the family kind of bond, even when they're not related, which in most of my examples, they are not. Basically, all of them, they're not, actually. 100% of all of them are not. Great. Good, we did it. But, I think in doing that, Sinister Soup is saying Grapes of Wrath, road trip. I don't know. Didn't even try to read it. Not even once.
I think more of a road trip book would be Faulkner's As I Lay Dying is kind of a road trip book. A really dark and depressing one, but a really good one. Have either of you seen
The Road is that's a road trip book, right?
The Road, yep. I was gonna say that, but then I remembered Locke with Tom Hardy. Have you seen that?
Is that the one where he's in the car by himself?
Yeah. And he's like talking.
I couldn't do it.
I was a big fan. It's definitely not everyone's movie, but it's Tom Hardy just acting his balls off.
Yeah.
Like he's talking to his invisible dead dad that's like the memory of his dead dad, and then he's like having phone calls and trying to solve this situation on the speakerphone in his car. Yeah. And I'm like, how is this compelling? Somehow it is. And
it's doing it, man.
It's Tom Hardy for 80 minutes.
Wait. Oh brother, where art thou?
That's a road trip.
Fantastic.
Keith, you got a favorite?
I have a novel. There's this guy named Tim Sandlin, and he did a trilogy called the Grovant trilogy, and I think it might actually be set in Montana.
Oh.
And the second book, I think, is a bunch of the characters traveling in like a VW van across the country. And it's so goddamn good. I haven't read it in so long, but it's like it fits. It's not a horror novel or anything, but it fits perfectly in that wheelhouse of like literary fiction and fucking hilarious. So.
Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot out there, and I definitely I need to read more of just a wider berth of genre. You talked on the last episode about your other genres. You're a big noir guy, right? And I remember you mentioned one other, and I can't remember what it was.
I mean, somewhat, yeah. There was a dude, Scott Wolven, who his Controlled Burn, he put out the story collection Controlled Burn 20 years ago. And I think it's the best crime fiction collection that's ever been put out. And it's all interconnected, and you don't really realize it until further on. But yeah, I think it's like, I want, reading like masculine literary dude fiction in my early 20s. It was really eye-opening. I was like, holy shit, you can do this? You can write like bro stuff, but with with beautiful prose. And I really fell in love with that stuff, and it reinvigorated my love of books beyond like Stephen King and comic books and stuff. And so I try, and then I found crime fiction and stuff, and I try like hell to write that stuff. But I also grew up on like G.I. Joes and Thundercats and X-Men, and so inevitably a ghost robot gets put in there somewhere, you know?
Naturally.
Why not? I have one question to circle back, and then I have one final one that's kind of I've been calling them my pretentious questions of every episode, because I just want to talk about I want to talk to professionals about these crazy thoughts that I have during the day. But my question to circle back is the first thing I asked was about kind of these moments of dramatic stuff within moments of levity and like how to pace that out. And I think there's like another element that I'm always curious about with writing, and it's when to know when to stop. Because I've seen that where I'm going to trash a movie. I don't like trashing things on the show, but I'm going to trash one a little bit. Because otherwise, there was this movie I really enjoyed called Life Itself, but it does this so bad, where it'll have like one section of a line that's like beautifully dramatic and like you're almost about to cry. And then it just goes and goes and goes. And you have like 10 minutes of this long soliloquy. It's
Right.
like, okay, man, like stop. So I don't know, like, is that, I know you say a lot of this stuff comes natural now, but like, is that something you have to approach very often? And do you know any really good examples where it's like, it's that where you want more, but you know they stopped at the right moment?
For one, I finished my beer, so I'm not quite as smooth as I would have been at the beginning of the show, you know? But again, I really do think that it comes with doing the work and just writing and writing and writing. And not just putting in the years, but like putting in the time on a piece. So like not just doing the piece and being like, I'm done. Or even for me, 2 drafts and I'm done. Like, you know, when I'm doing novels, I will do 15 run-throughs from page 1 to the end, you know? And it's like you see things in between like draft 8 and draft 10, you know? And again, I have a tendency to kind of blather on, probably like I'm doing now. And so it's a question of being like not too precious about your shit, you know? And like not throwing stuff away, but definitely cutting it and saving it, you know? That and just finding people that you trust that can give you, because I get to a point where I just can't, I have so many blind spots on my work that I gotta have somebody else look at it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm in a writing group and have an editor and an agent and yada yada that all kind of run stuff by. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, and that's the best way to do it, because in your own brain there's stuff you are not going to see no matter how hard you're looking for it, and it just helps to have more eyes on something to keep from falling into the trap that Travis is talking about. Like, there's this philosophy in engineering where when you've created something, you're not finished when there's nothing left to add. You're finished when there's nothing else that you can take away for things to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's the less is more sort of idea, and a little bit of what made me so unhinged and upset when we were talking about weapons just yesterday.
I haven't
You know
seen
what I'm
it
talking
yet.
about.
I want to see it.
That's okay.
Spoilers.
Everyone loves it but me.
Yeah, I was a big fan. I think it does. Yeah, I'm sure.
Does a lot.
Sorry,
Right.
go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was just saying, weapons does a lot right, but I don't like it.
Also, I hope the audience can't hear my pup is fine. If you hear him whining, he's fine. He's being dramatic, just so all of you know. But I do think a lot of that must be on the editing floor of like, I think it's good to hear, Keith, that it just always takes a village of somebody maybe tapping you on the shoulder and being like, You don't need that.
That's the thing is for every time I say shit like that, like I heard this anecdote about Sarah Graham, who has put out some of the raddest, like weird ass detective novels of all time, like the Claire DeWitt series. Like she's so good. And I remember hearing about how she gave like a presentation at like some UC college, and someone was like, "You have people edit your stuff before you send it to your editor," and she's like, "Fuck no, it's mine. I don't want anybody seeing it until it's sent off." You know, she's like, "Don't let anybody touch it. It's fucking yours." So everybody's different, you know.
Yeah. All right, here it is. Final pretentious question of the episode. Let's see. Oh, yeah. This is less of a question, more of a I just really want to hear y'all's
more of a comment. I love it.
Comment, and I want to hear thoughts from people who are better at talking and writing than I am, probably. But I've been thinking a lot lately about, because I'm teaching, trying to teach 9th graders the Iliad, which is a task. Luckily, very good class.
Hey, holy shit, man.
But we've been talking a lot in class about how, like, why is this story important? And one of the reasons is it's like from the dark ages of Greece, it's essentially all we have. So when people talk with a confidence and a puffed out chest of like, yeah, I know about the life in Greece. It's like, you know about this one poem and how it represented life in Greece. And so that's something I just want to talk to professionals a lot about, is like this concept of stories and books as artifacts. And like what, especially since you're writing about a different age, but you're writing it in the today time. So it's like a double thing of you're producing a work that's set in the 70s that you grew up in, or that you like knew people from in the Vietnam thing, but you're writing it in 2025 in a genre that's very familiar. And like, maybe if you can follow me on a weird, like, hypothetical, imagine someone picks up Coffin Moon in the future and they're reading it, and what are they taking as out of that artifact of like, what does it speak to our world about, kind of?
I mean, I think that historically, it's probably not that big of a jump. You know what I mean? And also, probably even in the Iliad too, like we're still dealing with all the base human emotions, you know? And Coffin Moon is really just about how you, again, like I mentioned earlier, how you can try to get what you think you want and how it still doesn't fulfill you. Like vengeance is like very hollow, you know? And so I think it's just that. I think it's like these stories, like, kind of, we can find solace in that idea of like recognition, like emotional recognition. So I don't know if there's any grand, like, I don't think Coffin Moon should be put in any time capsules anytime soon. I don't think it's a great encapsulation of, you know, the human experience. But I think that's the kind of what stories do for us. It's like kind of recognition of human, how similar we are.
Yeah.
See, it's tricky with stories, because to me it seems like by their very nature, no matter when they're set or when they're written, the only thing they're really capable of like communicating to people about is their own time and place where they're at when they're experiencing it. Because like us reading the Iliad, that's not gonna tell us jack about ancient Greece. It's not gonna tell us anything really that crucial about, like, you know, what it was like to be Greek.
Clay, I saw Clay's mustache move when you.
Yeah, Travis, what are you thinking?
Oh, I got Clay on my screen. I was
Wait
like,
a minute,
hey, I'm Travis. Yeah.
Oh
I'm,
my
I'm
God.
using my
He's been
brother's
Travis
Google
this whole time.
Holy shit! I am so sorry. Oh
No,
my
you're all right.
God!
I just saw the screen and I'm like, it's not even his fault. I'm using my brother's.
Wow.
No,
Okay.
not his
We
fault.
look similar.
Dude,
We look
you
similar.
guys look very similar. I'm so
I know
sorry.
the squint and
God.
everything. It's
I
wild,
do.
you know.
To Keith's point, though, the mustache moved. I want to push back on that because I do think this is what I mean by like books as artifacts. Like, you can get little bits of information about what they valued. Because, like, who's the hero of the Iliad? It's Achilles. Achilles, in a modern lens, sucks. Like, he's a prideful, arrogant a-hole. But he's the hero of that story. And he's the hero because he kind of is right about his pride. Like, he is the best warrior. And so he kind of does deserve the honorific. But we hate it. We hate, like, everyone I've ever shown that book to is like, why do people like Achilles? He sucks. And I'm like, that's because to us, he does. But like that epic poem at that time, like, that's Achilles. His name will live on forever. And we get other little things about like relationships between different characters. Like Hera and Zeus are like the gods. So they're the epitome of society. And they also kind of suck. They're fighting with each other all the time. Like Zeus has to be powerful. So I don't know. I guess that's where I'd push back. And I do think even if people don't think their stories are, highbrow or whatever, or in a genre that's not like a classics, I think every story, to Keith's point, has something about the human experience. And when you read it and you're like, oh, this was published during this time, there's something here. Like someone was looking at something a certain way and they put it on paper and it's sold. That's another thing of like, if it catches enough fame, that something truthful was being told, that enough people picked it up. And that's where I think Homer strikes home of like, if this sucked and didn't speak to truths of the time, it never would have been read.
It would have been lost in the sands.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's my pushback, Jeremy. But
no, I see, and I get that. You can take away some things about like the values of the time or whatever, about the author, the storyteller, maybe the culture to a certain point. But I'm a huge believer in like the death of the author type situation, because like regardless of what the intention was from anybody, you are taking away from a story what the story means to you and not what the author thinks. Like, who knows what Homer was really trying to get at when he didn't write the Odyssey, but when he started telling people about it.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it comes across as a story about like the dangers of pride and wrath and whatever. And that's why Achilles is more famous for, fucking up than he is for being the greatest hero in Greek myth. I don't know.
That's a fair point. And to kind of round off, I want to end with a bit of a goofy thing. And that is, and to you first, Keith, as our guest, I want to bring it all full circle here. Scooby Doo gets put in a time capsule. And down the road, centuries down the road, they open that time capsule and they watch 2002's Scooby Doo. What the hell are they going to think of human society?
Well, first of all, Travis, it makes so much more sense now where I'm like, oh, you look so different, man. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that's the thing is then you have to like we have to try to discern what the future is going to be like too.
Fair.
And so we get to try to figure out what avenue are we trundling towards now and how is that going to affect what these future people are going to see. So I don't have a damn clue, man. I think they'll probably marvel at how disjointed the narrative is and how weird it is and how woodenly some of the characters act. But beyond that, I got nothing, man.
I think that's fair.
There's no real telling what future generations are going to think of Scooby Doo. Just because,
Idiot, are you insane?
like, there are so many things that you kind of have to have just been around in 2002 to even understand why what you're looking at even made it on the screen. Like
Yeah.
Sugar Ray.
I want to believe that people of the future will be like, who is this band and why do I love them?
Why are they so magnetic? My goodness.
I'm drawn to the noise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I ever insulted Sugar Ray in my debate, because I'm unashamedly a Sugar Ray fan. They're
You
stupid.
would be.
I thought it was that one band, the other band, the guy with the frosted tips from the 90s and 2000s. Who was that?
You have to be more
In
specific.
sync.
No, it'll come to me. I'll shriek it out at the end.
All right.
Frosted
Apparently it was
early
supposed to
2000s.
be.
I don't know.
Apparently it was supposed to be Weezer, and they said no,
Actually, all right.
which I get why. Also, another bonkers thing about this movie that I never got to mention was, and that I'm going to mention now, is like trying in any way to try and make Linda Cardellini unattractive. You're always going to be unsuccessful in my book.
There you go.
Like, I don't know. Maybe it was teenage
More
Travis.
trouble than it's worth, really.
Maybe teenage Travis had different tastes, but when it was like Daphne versus Velma, I was like, "What? Am I the only one that would take Velma out like every time?"
But well, that was the other thing is I as somebody who watched the cartoons as a kid, I thought Scrappy was awesome, and I was like, oh man, you guys defiled him here. Like this is rough. Cool. My goodness.
I guess I never watched the Scrappy arcs. I never watched that cartoon. I watched.
I mean, Scrappy was there. I mean, James Gunn was just as surprised as everybody else to learn that Scrappy had like fans after this movie came out.
Right.
And
I want to see the letters of hate mail that are like, "You did Scrappy dirty."
Okay, totally. How could you?
How could you?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, those are the questions that I have. I know we're usually slated for 2, but usually we have like 6 people on the panel. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation, Keith. Thank you again for coming on. But before you leave, we're gonna rate this thing. So our completely arbitrary, completely senseless rating system for every movie or book or TV show is how many drinks would it take for you to fully enjoy this thing, or substances. We've had some interesting substances mentioned. Jeremy, how about you kick us off? Scooby Doo, what are you having and how much of it?
Okay, so like, I think the real answer, there's no way that it's going to be nothing, right?
No.
It can't.
No.
You can't. You shouldn't. It'll be a worse experience if you treat it that way. So, like, you'll want, I don't know. I mean, you want something, whatever you've got, whether that's, a drink, a harder drink, big bag of weed, sack of mushrooms, whatever. You just do one of those whenever you find yourself being like, what did the Luna ghost just sexually assault Daphne? That's, oh my god.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Or whenever you've got the voodoo guy, so that you're not wondering why or what a dead Arnuki beast is and why he's trying to sacrifice it.
And a dead chicken.
And a dead chicken. Why is he only sacrificing things that are already dead? Is that ethical, or is he cutting corners? We don't know. You don't wanna. So, or, just get in there. Just get in there. And of course, have another drink for that absolutely sick disco ball. What?
Oh yeah, the Mohawk.
I need
spikes.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
right?
got that spiky haired skull thing. Fire.
Yeah.
And of course, have enough that you don't question why all the demon things come out talking like white American people, except for the one who comes out as a luchador.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
One of them decided to learn Spanish first
Yep.
to speak with a Mexican accent.
Yep.
One of them did that.
Yeah.
And you want to have enough that you're not wondering at all how Scrappy Doo learned that there was magic and how to control it and how to build a robot suit.
And a bowl of, what did you call it, Keith? It was a great name. Sperm soul bowl?
Like soul sperm?
Jizz?
Yeah.
Soul sperm bowl.
Soul sperm bowl? Yeah. He learned all of that. Don't question it. It's fine. We're fine.
Yeah.
We're fine. 35 of whatever it is.
I love it. I'm going to go easy mode. Well, I'm going to go newbie mode, veteran mode, and just bonkers hard mode. So newbie mode. So if you're brand new to this movie, you've never watched it, I'd say take a sip of something, not too strong. Every time you can tell that this movie wanted to be rated R. So that's going to be quite a few sips. You'll probably finish like 3 drinks by the end of the movie because there's a lot of moments like that. But I don't think you should get too hammered because it's a wild ride. You're returning to this movie like I am. I say take a sip for that, and then take a sip for every time there's a great one-liner. So that adds quite a few on as well, maybe like 15 on. So by the end, you're getting like 5-6 drinks, 6-pack for the easy stuff. Hard mode is going to just be a continuous 1.5 power hour of just sips every minute, because I want you to drink every time this movie is just shouting early 2000s in your face. And you have to slam a beer when Sugar Ray comes on screen. So that's hard mode, where you're going to be absolutely blitzed by the time Scrappy Doo turns into the Hulk.
Yeah, I'm going with, as somebody who, again, just saw it for the first time, I think 1 or 2 beers would have sat perfectly. And then closing it out with just dunking the soul sperm cauldron all over your head and letting all of that stuff infest your body so you become like a super id and defeat Scrappy.
I think that's great. Yep. Monster fight with Scrappy Doo to round it off. Love
or
that.
just take a drink every time somebody rips their shit off to reveal that they're a robot.
Nice. All right, Keith Rosson, thank you so much again for joining the show. Can you tell everybody one more time where to find you, what you got coming out, maybe on the docket, or if anything, or where to look for your newest stuff?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and at Blue Sky. Those are the 2 that I'm generally on the most. Coffin Moon came out last month. Please buy 5 copies for your immediate family and your friends. And my next book, Crone, it's like a witch crime book, comes out next year. So
fantastic.
And thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm sorry that I called you Clay multiple times.
That's okay. I see that. I'm not blaming you for the screen saying literally my brother's name. He's the only one with the power to do the streaming on Google, so we had to switch accounts for.
Well, and I had emailed him earlier, and he immediately responded. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, well, there we go.
He's on. All right. Well, thank you again, Keith. Thank you, Jeremy. I've been Travis from Mullum, though you'll see Clay on the screen, and we're the usual buffoons. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on Fermented Fiction. Goodbye.
Bye.